From the WATE.com Digital Center, answering your legal questions. This is Ask Isaacs. Now, here's Lori Tucker and attorney Greg Isaacs.
Hi, everyone. Lori Tucker here along with Greg Isaacs. Greg, thank you for being here.
Lori, it's good to be here.
We are talking today about a case that truly has captivated the nation. 84-year-old Nancy Guthrie, of course, mother of Today Show anchor Savannah Guthrie, missing now, Greg, for 18 days. People hanging on every update on social media, on television. Lots of twists and turns, lots of disappointment, and lots of false starts here.
And this high-profile, highly unfortunate case of a kidnapping, an apparent kidnapping that's gripped the nation. But you know, it's as you watch this unfold, it's almost like a textbook law enforcement way to run leads. And they've utilized about every trick they have in the book. That is search warrants. They've used GPS data. They've extrapolated cell phones, key fobs, a geo fingerprint of that area. So you see people getting stopped, detained, like it seems like it's all blended together.
Well, there was
a few days ago,
SWAT
right? We had a delivery person, a
Yeah.
delivery person. Then Friday night we had a search warrant that was executed in a very high-profile move, but apparently that evidence, and you know, when you say it yields something or doesn't yield something, of course, now time is of the essence when you have an abduction. But in a criminal case, typically when we see somebody execute a search warrant, it's not an immediate arrest.
It's not an hour-long crime show.
It is not Law and Order, CIS. So we don't know what they're processing. But, you know, if we just sit here and we kind of look from Google Earth recent developments, you know, someone asked me, well, was that a slap in the face of the Guthrie family where the FBI has officially cleared them? Well, no. What that is showing that they want to do the Guthrie family a favor and make sure that they're not caught up in this internet rumor mill, conjecture, speculation, theories.
Right, and there's been lots of talk online about the sheriff's office, people criticizing the sheriff, particularly in Pima County, not getting along with the FBI, but we really don't know the ins and outs. And before we go any further, let's bring you up to date really quickly on where these stand today. Let's take a look.
I'm outside Nancy Guthrie's house in Tucson, Arizona, and this isn't the news that everyone watching this case has been hoping for, but the sheriff's office confirming that DNA that was taken off of a glove that the FBI said looked very similar to the glove that the suspect was wearing in the video outside Nancy Guthrie's house. DNA from that glove is not a match when it comes to the CODIS FBI database. They finally put the DNA into the CODIS database, which is a federal database that is full of criminals' DNA from all over the country, and there was no match. And we're told that all of the DNA so far that they have submitted in this case has not come up with a match in CODIS. Now, there is still DNA that they have to submit, so there's some hope there. And we're also told they're likely already starting the genetic genealogy DNA match process, which is much more complex and can take more time, but that's similar to what they used in the Brian Kohberger case, where they put DNA into ancestry databases and then they can find third, fourth cousins, they can find aunts and uncles of a suspect and sort of work their way in that way. So that is still very much a possibility. In terms of other parts of the investigation, we know that they are continuing to try to work with Walmart to figure out who bought the backpack. Remember, the backpack the suspect was wearing, the sheriff says, came from Walmart. We've also confirmed that the FBI has been going to gun stores in Tucson with a list of 40 names and 40 photos, asking employees in those gun stores if they recognize anyone on that list. Back to you.
All right, that was Brian Enton reporting, doing an incredible job out there, practically 24/7, keeping everybody up to date on air and online. Brian Enton with News Nation. Okay, so CODIS didn't get no hits on CODIS with that glove that was found about 2.5 miles away from Nancy Guthrie's home. But as was mentioned, they're using genetic and genealogical methods. Let's backtrack a little, though, because DNA is very important, and it could be on some other things as well, like the backpack. And collecting DNA, just to go back to the beginning, it dates back to, what, 1986, where it started being collected for use in criminal cases.
It did, and DNA is a Damocles sword because since 1989, there have been 375 people released from prison when it's shown that DNA proved unequivocally, forensically, that they were not the individual that committed a crime. Conversely, there are tens of thousands of people behind bars that DNA has unequivocally said this person was the person that committed the sexual assault that was inside this house. So since 1989, deoxyribonucleic acid, i.e. DNA, has been an incredibly powerful tool. And how we've seen it evolve. When it first started, the markers were not as specific as they are now. Basically, we all have 98.6, kind of an interesting number, of the same DNA. It's that remaining DNA that is your genetic fingerprint that makes it unique. When you're talking about DNA, what you don't want if you're law enforcement is contamination, and you want to make sure somebody that's collecting the evidence text there know how to do those swabs, know how to get it to a lab that is certified. So, I will take kind of a little professional disagreement with Brian when he says there's no match on the DNA because they ran it through CODIS. DNA has a match. We haven't found the match yet.
And that is where this genetic genealogy may come in. And let's talk more. Brian mentioned the Brian Kohberger case. Let's go a little more in depth into that. If you don't remember that knife, the sheath of the knife that was found in the Idaho home where those 4 co-eds were killed, it had DNA on it. Didn't get a hit on CODIS. And then they did the genealogy, the genetic genealogy on it, and then compared it to items found in Kohberger's family's trash, and were able to isolate the fact that Kohberger's father was deemed to be not excluded, I guess I should say, not excluded from being the father of the suspect. Very interesting.
It's
how they narrowed that down.
Very interesting, and it kind of harkens back, when you had Barry Scheck and the birth of DNA in courtrooms back in the early '90s, the O.J. Simpson case, and the glove that O.J. had, and for you younger viewers,
that was an epic fail.
Epic fail when they made the prosecutors ask O.J. to try the glove on, and he kind of did his hand like that, and then Johnny Cochran created, if it doesn't fit, you must acquit. Now.
And people are calling back the O.J. case with the gloves in this case.
But remarkably, we have a glove that has DNA.
Yeah.
And, even though there wasn't a match through CODIS, and what is CODIS? That's the FBI national database.
So if you've been convicted of a felony.
Of certain crimes, certain felonies, then there is a library, a catalog of suspects' DNA. So, what that tells me is, when you don't have a match through CODIS, that you have somebody that's not been habitually in the system, which would typically rule out a random act of violence, et cetera.
And wouldn't that tell you a little bit more about who they're looking for as well?
It tells me, based on my experience, that you're looking at somebody with a higher level of sophistication. But I will tell you, when you, and I've had this debate in my family, Ancestry.com, just to throw out one of the names of the resources. When you have that genetic testing, and you're tracing your ancestry, your genealogy, these cases are quintessential examples of, there have been people falsely implicated because they widen the search parameters so it's not as narrow or specific in terms of a match. You're looking for similar genetic markers, so sometimes you get swept up in something you don't want to. A
cousin ninth removed or whatever. Okay.
So but
what about the legality of testing or using results from, say, Ancestry.com?
Well, typically, if you'll look before you do it, you sign a very lengthy release, et cetera. So that has been done on the front end. But I think once you have that forensic DNA what net kind of opened up, and you kind of opened the search, I think that is something that could yield results. But the other thing that's really interesting to me, and I've seen it here in cases in Knox County, Walmart is a very sophisticated merchant. And when you purchase something, as they've identified, the backpack,
and possibly the jacket as well.
The jacket as well, there is basically a barcode that is scanned. When you scan the barcode, it tells you the Walmart, the location, the register, and you can look up and you can look down when you're checking out, but smile, you're on camera. And so what they do is once they can go and check that inventory and get that specific item and a time of purchase, then that is very powerful. And quite frankly, I'm surprised that hadn't yielded more results quicker.
But you know more than anybody else that these investigators, the FBI particularly, are keeping things from the public, things that I would think in this case. You can't just be totally transparent.
They only release what they want to be released and want you to know. So that's something very, very important to note, that they're making strategic investigative decisions. This stuff isn't getting leaked willy-nilly as we go through this process.
Are you surprised it's taking this long?
Well, if you think about it, when you have DNA in a glove and there apparently may have been some DNA in the house and outside, some blood outside in the yard, but they found within the 2-mile radius 16 gloves. So that tells me that you have, a tremendous amount of people that are going in and out of that neighborhood, that area, cleaning, doing landscaping, doing other things. So
maybe even some of the investigators, they said. So I just had this mental image of investigators just, okay, we're done, tossing a glove,
Well, it is remarkable, but it's 18 days, and they've looked at cell phone cyber footprints. They've looked at the data where you can trace key fobs. You're looking at what is pinged off those cell phone towers, and they're extrapolating that data. So, there is, with all that effort, you would think in a very populous area, a very upper income area, that all of this sophistication would have yielded something sooner rather than later. But I'm telling you, the efforts that we're seeing are textbook, and I think it's just a matter of time until there's a hit from a Walmart barcode, there's a hit from a shop that sold a gun. I was sitting there looking at the pictures because it's really fascinating. And someone had pointed out that the suspect in the Ring camera, who appeared to be disabling the cameras, you could tell was wearing a ring under his
And they
glove.
thought they saw a hint of a tattoo on one of his wrists.
And that sounds like maybe something, not a lot, but that's huge, because when you narrow down the suspects and you eliminate, people that are married versus single, whatever, that narrows the search engine of the pool. So, again, this is a unfortunate real life, real time kidnapping mystery. Hopefully it's not a homicide murder mystery.
Every day that goes by, you worry even more about this poor woman, again, 84 years old, not in good health, could barely walk 50 yards unassisted, had to be on medication every day, and we learned that within the first few hours of her disappearance, that she was on medication that could prove deadly if she didn't take it every day.
It's true.
So,
and I think at this stage in this investigation, 18 days out, with all this Hubble telescope of scrutiny, the media frenzy, this case is going to be cracked one or two ways. It's going to be broken forensically, scientifically, or conversely, even though we have all this technology, all this genealogy, DNA, one of the hardest things people do that commit crimes is to keep their mouths closed. So you have to remember, this could not have occurred in a vacuum. People don't live in a vacuum. people don't wear backpacks, wear coats,
There are people
buy
who
guns
know.
in a vacuum.
There are people who
are
know.
people who know, and
What-
as the temperature goes up,
Yeah.
typically people flip.
Well, what about the fact that the sheriff said, hey, this could take years to solve? People really hung on that and said, are you kidding me? With everything going on in this day and age, with DNA and with this genetic genealogy and all the other things. Where do you suppose that came from? And what do you think about that?
I was surprised about that. I think what you want to do is you want to make statements that keep suspects and people with knowledge on edge, and you want to be very tactical about public statements, and you want to be a cheerleader and a bedrock for that family. And if I was a victim and I heard may take years, I'm like, well, the hell it is.
Well, but if you're a suspect, maybe that would make you relax a little bit and say, hey, I'm going to carry on my life. They have no idea.
Well, that's a
so
good
maybe
point.
that could be
Maybe
a
it was
tactical
maybe it was a false
moment.
flag information operation. But I will tell you, the glove and the DNA is a recent find. All the other stuff is recent. They're doing the ancestry. I think within the next week or so that there's going to be some very significant developments in this case.
Let's hope so, for the sake of Savannah Guthrie's family and for Nancy Guthrie. Hope that she is somehow, some way, okay. We don't know a motive. The ransom notes, we don't know about those, if they're real or not. I know TMZ has come out, I think today, within the last few hours, and has said, we're not going to share. If we get any more, we're not going to share the information in case it's a copycat or something to that effect. So,
And that's a tough call. And
Yeah.
what you have is you're well aware of when you have a source. And this is a fascinating component because, last week TMZ was saying they had somebody that for a price was going to release the identity of the kidnappers, which I thought was just as deplorable, across the board with the media. If that really was true, if you made it up, it's deplorable.
well, they made one arrest, but they haven't made an arrest in this latest. And I would think it would be easier to trace than they're letting on.
Well, but here's the way this works. If you have a source under the press shield, that source is typically confidential, as you're aware. Now, conversely, if somebody is going to commit a future crime, then it's not. So there's a very fine line when you say we have all this information, but we're not going to disclose. We're going to disclose. But then again, maybe those are false flag operations.
True.
As well. But when I see all of this investigative web and this sphere over this case with the genealogy, the dioroxynucleic acid, DNA, when I see the backpack being identified from Walmart.
You're hanging on this backpack. You think that might be the key, yes?
I think it's
Over the
easier to
glove.
match the backpack
Yeah.
with a security camera and a date and time when it was purchased than it is to trace DNA all over the United States.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. Makes sense.
If I was the Guthrie family, I would be cautiously optimistic, but I will tell you this. What I like? I like these law enforcement officials are swinging for the fences because they're stopping people and letting them go. They're issuing search warrants and saying, well, that was the lead. We're going to move on. Not like, let's slow it down.
Yeah.
So, a very unfortunate, but I think it's going to reach a crescendo hopefully here in the next few days or week.
I hope you're correct.
I hope I am as well.
All right. Thanks so much for being with us, everyone. Let's talk more at 5:30, shall we?
Let's do it.
All right.